Sponsored by Brilliant. Apple has just announced new iMacs for 2019. Well, newly updated iMacs. Up front, they're spec bump versions of the previous models. Beyond that though, I got to race over to New York and spend some time with Apple looking at the specific updates and hearing all about the modern iMac in general. And yeah, it turns out there's just a little bit more to the story. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. Same things first. Yes, this is still the iMac chassis that Apple's been shipping more or less since 2012. If you've been waiting for iMac to have its 10 moment, to win its personal war on bezels, to take its display edge to edge, and to skip right over the still non-existent Touch ID for the Apple Bluetooth keyboard and go straight to Face ID for our faces, well, you and me both. But for that, for now, we're all just going to have to keep on waiting, at least for a little while longer, because either it's not ready or Apple's not ready for it yet. Either way, what we have here is the iconic, silver-hued, bead-blasted aluminum retina display packing skinny unibody with that Apple logo unabashedly emblazoned on that chin, all absolutely still intact. In other words, no surprises on the outside. But if that's perfectly fine for you, and all you've been waiting for is some Coffee Lake love, well, then good news. Apple has just exactly those new Coffee Lake iMacs for you to love. New things next. Technically, Apple has 2 generations of Intel Silicon for you, one of which is piping fresh from the fabs. Now, I know some people live and die by the spec sheet, while others just kind of glaze over and hit fast forward until they see something better approaching real-world usage. But since these particular updates are spec updates, I'm going to hit them old school style, but real quick. The 21.5-inch iMac starts with an 8th generation Coffee Lake 3.6 GHz quad-core i3, has a 6-core Core i5 option, and is configurable with up to a 3.2 GHz 6-core Intel Core i7 turbo boost up to 4.6 GHz. The 27-inch starts with a 9th generation Coffee Lake refresh, 6-core Intel Core i5 turbo boost up to 4.1 GHz, and is configurable up to a 3.6 GHz 8-core Intel Core i9 processor, turbo boost up to 5 GHz, which is, yeah, fast, and maybe, just maybe, dare I hope, better than most of Intel's updates lately. There's new AMD graphics here as well. The 21.5-inch starts with a Radeon Pro 555X with 2 GB of GDDR5 memory, has a 560X option, and you can take it all the way to a Radeon Pro Vega 20 with 4 GB of HMB2 memory. The 27-inch starts with a Radeon Pro 570X with 4 MB of GDDR5 memory, with 575X and 580X options, but you can take that all the way up to Radeon Pro Vega 48 with 8 GB of HBM2 memory. Yeah, still no NVIDIA, but better AMD options than ever, and thanks to Thunderbolt 3, because the I/O on these models is essentially unchanged, you can hang newer and better eGPU off the back if and when you want to. For memory, the 21.5-inch includes 8 GB of 2,666 MHz DDR4 memory, and you can bump that up to 16 GB or 32 GB. The 27-inch is 8 GB standard, bump upable to 16 GB, 32 GB, or 64 GB. For storage, the 21.5-inch has options for 1 TB of HD or 1 TB of Fusion drive, or 256, 512, or 1 TB of SSD. The 27-inch, 1 TB, 2 TB, or 3 TB of Fusion, or 512, 1 TB, or 2 TB of SSD. I get that the cost at capacity savings of HD and the aspiration of fusing drives, melding SSD for speed with good old-fashioned platters for volume, but my advice on this remains the same as it's always been. Internal hard drives are for suckers. Always go pure SSD and then hang any extra storage you need, all external-like, off a Thunderbolt port. You'll thank me when you can just swap out enclosures and never have to worry about taking your whole iMac in just because the platter puttered out. Otherwise, these new iMacs are pretty amazing. So amazing you may wonder what the deal is with the iMac Pro. And I totally get that. The lines are really butting together now in the middle. But here's the thing. They're butting but not really crossing over, at least not yet. If you want up to 8 cores of blisteringly fast Core 9 performance, the just updated iMac is a beast. If 8 cores are only the starting point for you though, then the iMac Pro remains your main monster. Now, computers aren't just bits and atoms, they're important objects in our lives, some of the most important, and that's especially true when it comes to the iMac. From talking to Apple and to a lot of people who use the iMac day in, day out, while MacBooks are by far the most popular Macs, the clean, iconic design of iMacs makes it the centerpiece for a lot of people, especially when they're upgrading not just their desktop, but their entire desk situations. Whether you have an iPad or a MacBook on the go, iMac lets you stop, and the big screen really lets you take it all in. Photo editing, music editing, video editing, web browsing, gaming, watching movies. There just isn't an iPad or MacBook that can do that at 21.5 inches, let alone 27 inches. Call it hipster or even silly if you like, but there's a reason you see them on TV shows and in the movies, even when there are no deals and the logos are hilariously stickered over. And it's because they're so unmistakably iconic. It's the same reason you see them so often on YouTube channels that really excel at showing off just these kinds of setups. Jonathan Morrison and Daily Tech come to mind immediately. For a home office or living room, an iMac is still the gold standard when it comes to not just design, but to a lot of people's redesigns. Speakers, plants, sculptures, books, even the desks themselves are often built off of and around the iMac. The office is similar. If you've pumped a ton of cash into making your front of house as beautiful and inspirational as possible, down to the art and installations, the all-in-one nature of the iMac, with a back that looks as good as the front, can really complete that image. And since the iMac runs Office, and I'd argue the Mac App Store is now the best place to get Office, way better than the web, you're not sacrificing anything. Same for back of house, especially for app and game developers and creative professionals. The iMac panel is just so good. Once you see your work on that expansive, high-density Retina DCI P3 display, it's really hard to go back to anything else. And yes, you bet, either of these machines would be aces to get started developing on. You know, writing code, blowing minds. If you're not sure where to start though, check out Brilliant. Brilliant's daily problems are a fun, bite-sized way to master concepts by applying them. Each problem comes with illustrations, animations, or interactive visualizations, and all the context you need to solve the problem yourself. And that's just such a better, more intuitive, more engaging way to learn. Whether it's straight up coding, neural networks, machine learning, AI, all the cutting edge things, you can actively learn new, fascinating concepts each day and get 20% off the annual subscription to view all problems in the archives. Just be one of the first 200 to head on over to brilliant.org/vector and finish your day a little smarter every day. Thanks, Brilliant, and thanks to all of you for supporting the show. Now, I'm not saying these new iMacs are perfect. There's still a ton of stuff I'm wanting and waiting for Apple to bring to the iMac and macOS in general. And I'll have a separate video up on all of that stuff and much sooner than you think. But here's the thing, they're iMacs, not the iMacs that will be and a lot of us are waiting for. These are the iMacs that are, just faster and therefore better. And pretty much anyone who's ever used an iMac knows exactly what that means. Alas, Apple has literally just announced them, and I only got to spend about an hour talking about them, so I haven't had time to go in depth on either of these updated iMacs just yet. I can tell you the displays are as stunning as always, and the new speeds seem super speedy, but I've yet to bench any marks, test any thermals, measure read-write, or dive into any of the other geeky details that are really needed to spot potential gotchas and pleasant surprises both. So when I've had the time to do all that, I'll report back on exactly that. But if you've just been itching to order, if you've been waiting on an iMac with all the latest silicon, then these are absolutely the iMacs you've been waiting for. The new 21.5-inch iMac starts at $1299. The new 27-inch iMac starts at $1799. Both are available to order starting today and will be in Apple stores and Apple resellers starting next week. And if you have any questions you want answered, you know what to do. Hit like, hit subscribe, and then hit up the comments below and let me know. And thank you so much for watching.